Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming over. This is another episode of Spilling Tea, and I am your host, Tiffany Daniels. This is coming to you from my brand new laptop, which is actually quite awesome. I've been playing with it since I got it yesterday. Now, I kind of wanted to discuss something because it's been something that's been bothering me. I've been seeing it in the chats. I've been seeing YouTubers mention it, and I kind of wanted to go over a few things. This is in regards to AH and JD, why he was with her in the first place, and there's been a lot of comments in regards to the age difference. And it's this comment of, well, it was a midlife crisis. Well, I want to go over something with you real quick. As you know, as I've mentioned, with his diagnosis of ADHD, as is detailed in the court documents, that puts him in the neurodiverse group. My group of folks. So, I'm here to tell you folks, we don't look at people, even when we're dating someone, quite the same way the normal average neurotypical would. We don't look at age or even necessarily at physical appearance. What we look at when we look at individuals is what type of person they are or the type of person that they're coming off as. See, the fact of the matter is, back in 2010, there was that split between him and Vanessa Paradis. He was with this woman who was the mother of his children for 14 years. A split like that is extremely traumatic. What I'm talking about here is he has spent basically almost a lifetime with her. Now, when you are neurodiverse and you go through a traumatic event like that, it messes with your head in a way that most neurotypicals really don't understand. I mean, yes, we have a lot of the same emotions, but with our circular thinking and the way we tend to hyper-focus on something, that traumatic event can and does entirely cloud one's judgment, their thoughts, and their emotions. Basically, you begin to lose yourself in the tragedy of losing a relationship. When you're in that point, which is where I was back in 2008 when I lost my dad, it makes you incredibly vulnerable to the predators that happen to be out there. Because you're swimming in the ocean of your own emotions, and you are looking for anything to anchor you, anything to grab onto, to be able to steady yourself and be able to get a little bit back of who you are more on a regular basis. So in 2010, they split. They keep it quiet till 2012. Well, think about it. She did her research on JD. She knows from back in the past how he reacted, like when he lost Winona, for example. So what is she going to do? What she did. She did what my ex did. They will place themselves there. Like a lifeboat, so to speak. when you are dealing with that traumatic stuff and you're kind of out in the ocean. They will appear and place themselves there as a lifeboat, someone that you can grab a hold onto that will pull you back up onto the boat. And that is what she did. And part of her being there, she's not just going to appear as, a lifeline to him. She has to also convince him that she is the one he's been looking for his whole life, right? So that he can actually get his mind off of the woman he has been madly in love with for 14 years and convince him that she was the one he was supposed to be with all along. So she is going to pretend to like all the same things that he does, think the same way that he does, have similar personality quirks that he does, give him that sense of comfort, familiarity, and building a kinship, a bond, if you will. Those of us who are neurodiverse will grab onto that with both hands. More often than not, to our own detriment. See, we're not paying attention to the red flags because we're just trying to get above the water. That is what I think actually happened. I don't think it has anything to do with him having a midlife crisis because he's getting older. Most of us on the neurodiverse squad don't really think that way. And I think this is more along the lines, he just went through trauma and she placed herself as a lifeboat. And once he got on the boat, she would then proceed to wrap herself up so much in him that she would appear to be his saving grace, his soulmate. And that is how she got him. I think that is actually how it all happened. Now, I speak of this from personal experience. When I lost my dad, it was like I lost my planet. And he understood me more than anyone ever has without even ever having to try. Now, he had his faults, just like JD, and some of the things that went on between my mother and him, especially once he had custody of me, was not at all okay or right. I can say that now in retrospect. But he was my world, and losing him sent me on a very dark path. When I talk about my alcoholism on there, when he died, I was actively, knowingly trying to kill myself with alcohol poisoning. That was my entire goal. That's where the alcoholism came from. And all of a sudden, and this is when I was the advocacy specialist and I was first starting my first group of autism self-advocates out here in Springfield. I get this phone call, and it's from this 30-something man's mother who seemed at her wit's end. She didn't know what to do. He apparently had a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder, and they weren't able to get anybody to help him because he kept being told he was too high functioning. Well, of course that touched me because I had dealt with that way too many times, and I've told you about the horror story of one of the folks that I lost due to that exact thing. So, I got them to come to one of the very first meetings of that group, and between him and their family, they really sucked me in at my most vulnerable, and just immediately, before I even knew what was happening, was beginning to isolate me, beginning to really get me to question my remaining family ties. They sucked me in when I was at my most vulnerable. I saw a life raft. I grabbed onto it without thinking, dismissed red flags because I needed that anchor so badly to try and get my head on right, and ended up getting my head turned around backwards even further than what it already was. So that's what I think what happened here as well. So, in conclusion, the point is, even with age discrepancies, when you run into something like this, don't always automatically assume that it is a midlife crisis that's what's going on, because that's not always the case, especially when you're talking about somebody who it has a neurodivergent diagnosis. Not everybody takes a look at age the same way as most regular people do. However, almost everyone knows what it's like going through a traumatic experience and having somebody out there take advantage of that and just place themselves there, right place, right time. So that's basically my point. Alright, folks. That's my 2 cents on that now. I don't really have anything more for now. If you could, please don't forget to hit that like button. Hit subscribe. Of course, don't forget to hit the comments. I do appreciate your time today, and I hope you have a good one. Bye-bye.